Hey everybody, welcome to the Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout Show and Tell Show. Tonight we've got a product, a project, and techniques. So we're hitting all three categories. The Show and Tell Show, the idea behind it is if you have something that in some way uses 3D printing, whether it's 3D printed as the final product, it's a technique to do 3D printing or modeling, something along those lines, something for 3D printing, or a product that at some point in time used 3D printing to get to the final product, but doesn't even have to include 3D printing in the final product. We want you to come on. We want you to tell us about what you did, how you did it, how you came up with the idea, and come on and just present, show it off. Tonight, we're doing something a little bit different. We are live streaming to both YouTube and Facebook at the same time. So for those of you in the chat, we may be answering questions that are posted on Facebook, so YouTube won't see it, or we may be asking questions that are on YouTube, so Facebook won't see it. I think I said the same thing twice, but you get the idea. Tonight, along with myself, which I'm Matt Flinchbaugh from How I Do It, I also have Sean with me tonight. Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself.
What's up, everybody? I hope your Friday night is awesome. Tonight is going to be a great night to share some projects everyone's doing. Thank you, Matt, for doing this pretty much every week. This is so awesome. I am Sean from Sean Anigans or Art Mods. You can find me on YouTube and all that. Twitters and all the socials. So I am here to co-host tonight's event, and yeah, Earth was great, and tonight's going to be great, and I hope you guys have a lot of fun.
All right, thanks, Sean. So we're going to go ahead and go right into the presenters tonight. First up, let's do Devon. I know she's really excited to show off her props and projects that she had at Earth and maybe some stuff that she didn't have at Earth.
Hi, I'm Devon on Twitter. I'm at Gear3D_official. I had a prop table at Earth. I'm gonna start with the first props I've ever made just because they're a fun story. So these are dragon eggs. The third one's on the table, but I have two hands, so but when I first made these, I printed one of them for the season 7 premiere of Game of Thrones, and when I printed it, my cousin's friend pretty much demanded that I make the entire set and paint them. And when I was fully on board with the idea, and I printed them out, and when I had all 3 of the dragon eggs just printed, I texted my cousin's friend, and I was like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I'm not good at painting. I was never really good at painting in art class. I can draw, but I can't paint. And he told me that it didn't matter if I messed up, because even if I did mess up, I could just paint over it again. And so I just had to try. And so this one was actually the first one that I painted. And he was right. I did mess up a little bit, I think, on this one, but it ended up working out right. It ended up working out. And so when I finished painting it, I was like, oh, this is actually pretty good. So then I finished the entire set. And that's how I pretty much got into prop making, because I realized that I could paint in 3D, just not 2D, just like everyone else in art class. And then after that, I moved on to my gun from my favorite game, which was the Lancer from Gears of War. Nope, the camera goes this way. It's funny. In cameras, it kind of looks like it's from Borderlands because of how I weathered it. But this actually took 505 hours to print. It probably took about 100 to sand, and probably, I think it was close to 4 days to paint. It's definitely currently the biggest project I've worked on because I haven't finished my engine sword yet. I printed that in February, and now I need to print new parts for it because I decided the parts I printed aren't good enough. But so once the engine sword's done, I think that'll actually be the best or the largest undertaking I have actually gone through so far. And from this being like my second prop, I'm pretty proud of it because the finish is really great on it, especially because it's Gears of War, so that helped tremendously. Um,
How many
oh,
how many pieces is your
the Lancer was 12.
12 pieces?
Yeah, it was 12 pieces. You can kind of see, currently it's in a clamshell. You can kind of see the seam that goes along here. But yeah, the top was, I think, 5.
Okay.
Oh no, the top was like 6. But yeah, it's in 12 pieces. I had to do a lot of modifications to this model in Simplified 3D. Those modifications can be done in Slicer or Cura as well. I basically just had to duplicate the model, mirror it, and line it up in some cases because the detail's not on both sides of the chainsaw. But
Now, can you elaborate on your painting process on that piece?
yeah,
Because the detail is really, really nice, and I really like the metallic look and the grungy look that you went with it.
so with the dragon eggs, I'll just grab one of them since they're right here. So with the dragon eggs, I pretty much hand painted these. So I hand painted it with acrylic, and then I did the weathering. Like I hand painted a gradient on it. So I did white up here. Actually, I made a very light green, I think, and then I did more white, and then I made a dark green with black down here, and then I weathered it with I watered down black acrylic and just washed it over the entire thing. I also think I put some brown that I think I mixed the brown, which was honestly very hard. They don't really teach you how to mix brown in art class, so that was frustrating. And then I painted polyacrylic on it because that's all I had for clear coats at the time. With this guy, since I got an airbrush on Amazon, I think it was just like one of the cheap ones. I don't remember how much it was. But what I did with that, if you go back into my Twitter thing, it's like one of the first things I posted was, well, actually, it was first this primer gray, and then I spent, I think, a good like 2 days masking this. So I masked the darker areas. I painted in gunmetal, and the lighter areas are painted in silver acrylics because I airbrushed it. But I spent forever masking this.
Wow.
And then I weathered it first before I did anything else. I can't remember if I weathered in clear. No, I weathered pre-clear coat, and then I clear coated it, and then I added the blood by basically dousing a paintbrush in red paint and flicking it at the Lancer.
Okay.
My hand was actually dyed for a couple days because I'm the idiot who doesn't like to wear gloves when painting. And I still find red dots on the wall sometimes. Luckily, my parents don't know about that one, though. My bench is actually still dyed red from it because I just use hardboard, so I don't care if I get stuff on it.
Right.
But yeah, it's still dyed red. I literally just wiped it down with isopropyl alcohol yesterday, and the paper towel did come off a tiny bit pink.
Now, did you use any blue? I see a lot of blue. Is that the light refraction, or is that did you put any blue on
I
it?
can tell you exactly what that is. That's my printer light because it's
Oh,
for some reason the white is blue, so that it's reflecting off of this. Yeah,
okay.
the only blue is right here, and that was
Okay.
hand painted in. Yeah,
Okay.
that
It looks nice. That blue light reflects
yeah,
really nice off of that.
yeah,
Yep.
this is from my printer cabinet because that's on.
Cool. So cool. You did a great job. I really like that.
Thank you. I want to show this off because Mike's really good at prop design. But so this model's by Midnight Giant, and it was like a month before Earth, and I was like, I need to make 4 props because I didn't know if I was actually going to Earth at this point because I didn't know if I'd have tests. And I think it was the second day of class. I went on to my calendar and I planned out my entire semester and found out that I only had 1 day of class the week after Earth. The week after Earth, and I was only supposed to have 1 test that week. I ended up having 2 because stuff got pushed back, but I wanted to make 4 props. I think I did do that. I technically made more because I made 3 of one I designed. But when I saw this on my mini factory, I decided I really needed to make it because I thought it would be funny if I showed up to Earth with one of Mike's designs. I was originally not going to tell him, but I did. So this one was different than the Lancer because this one was actually purely spray paint other than the handle. The handle I did in black acrylic. But this I did a gloss white base coat, and then I rubbed it with graphite, and then I clear coated it, and then after that I hand painted the handle black, and then rubbed that with graphite, and it actually gave it a more worn look. So that's.
So you actually use graphite to weather it.
Yeah, I could actually go grab my tub of graphite. It's like right there. Originally I had a little woodless pencil that was absolute garbage. Like I have a nice set of woodless pencils that I used for art, but this little woodless pencil came in a set of just pretty much I hate wooden pencils when it comes to drawing. But that's just me personally. But this crappy woodless pencil came in the set. And when I saw the video by Punished Props about graphite for knives, I also did these with graphite, but these are slightly different. I did these all with graphite. But when I saw the video by Punished Props about it, he actually at one point used like a woodless pencil to do it. So I was like, oh, I have one of them. And that's actually what I did my big Santa sword or Christmas sword. I mean, the model's Santa sword, but it's basically just a Christmas themed sword. I did the whole blade with that. I used to just only use that. And then I bought a tub of graphite on Amazon for like $16.
Okay.
But so these I actually designed. These are the only props I've made so far. Not entirely true, but these are the only like weapons I have designed. The other props I designed are like little badges that are meant to go on a costume that has yet to exist. But these are the first props I designed. They're a little throwing knife that's based on an actual knife that gets sold. I saw it online. I really liked the blade design.
Yeah.
And so the thing that's different about these is this one I wanted to show the different finishes you can get with graphite. So this one has a white base coat, this one has a gray base coat, and this one has a black base coat, but they were all rubbed with graphite. So they get different finishes that way.
Very, very cool. I like how you wanted to show the different base coats because base coats, especially from my experience, make the difference. It makes or breaks the prop or the piece that you're doing. So the white base coat will give it a lighter appearance as opposed to a grayscale or a black.
The funny thing is this one was done in white. Someone asked where I got the tub of graphite. It's on Amazon. There's one that's $6 that has like $10 of shipping. I got the one that's recommended by Amazon. And if you find the reviews, someone talks about Punished Props. That's the tub I bought. But this one was actually a white base coat, but it's so much darker than the other one. I don't know why. I can't figure it out. I think it might have been because it was a different can. I really don't know. But yeah, it came out so much different. And then another one I did with graphite was this guy.
Yeah, that's cool.
I've been really into graphite recently. It just without fail. The only thing that fails is that for some reason, in my experience, I'll just leave one of these here. But in my experience, spray paint is so like acrylic with the eggs. Literally, they're only coated in polyacrylic, which can peel off without a doubt. Like it's not even clear coated. And I could just chuck it across the room and the paint will be fine. But with like this thing and the knives, they just gently bump into something and all of a sudden they're down to the bare plastic. And I'm just like, it's so frustrating.
Yep.
Have you looked at the graphite spray?
No, I have not.
Like lubricants, like there's silicone lubricants and then there's a graphite aerosol. I wonder how that would. I've used it on parts to lubricate interconnecting parts, but I've never tried it as a finish.
It's a graphite powder spray, right?
It's a graphite lubricant. Basically,
Possibly.
yeah, it's graphite
I mean,
powder.
I know the tub that I have is marketed as lubricant. So
Okay, so if you get a box, like a shipping box, and you can suspend your object inside of it, like at the top, get a spray can of that chalkboard paint and spray it at the bottom and let the mist come up on it.
what does that do? Or is it just
You'll see. It's real cool. It's real cool.
what, do you spray it at the bottom of the box, or are you trying to hit the object?
No, don't hit the object. Spray at the bottom of the box and let it fumigate inside, and you'll get this real cool pattern. So if you want to show like marks and you want to show like a worn type look, the mist will actually come up and coat the bottom or whatever side you have your object suspended from the top with like fishing line. And it will coat it, and you can take chalk or whatever and just hit the side of it, and you'll see like streaks, like it was banged up and dinged up. It's real cool, but it's like super sporadic. It's not like you're not gonna know where it's gonna go.
Well, that's fun because I do actually have, granted, I don't think I'll have a box big enough, but I do have something that I plan to try to make look like it's been burned for next year. I can't really specify what it is, but it is on my to-do list.
I say Carson asked the question on YouTube, on the YouTube chat. She wanted to know what you have planned for next year for Earth.
Carson knows what I have planned for next year.
Wants to spill the beans.
Carson also knows I'm not allowed to say because it's not final yet.
Awesome. Well, if there's
I have two collabs, both of which involve her and her husband.
So she's got the insider info.
That's a loaded question, then. What are you trying to do to her?
Somebody's trolling.
Right?
So if anybody has any more questions for Devon, Devon.
I've been given permission to hint. So one of the things is something I've already made that we are remaking in ways that I have mentioned previously in interviews. So that's a very indirect hint, but I have said it many times what I want to do to one of my props I've already made.
Cool. If anybody has more questions for Devon, go ahead and post them in the chat, Facebook or YouTube. We can see both of them. We're going to move over to Mike here in just a second. Devon, tell everybody again where they can find you.
I'm on Twitter at Gear3D at Gear3D_official.
At Gear3D
_official. I couldn't get just Gear3D. The person who had that account got banned, so I tried.
Awesome. Thanks, Devon.
Oh, someone just asked me a question, so I'll just real quick answer that. One prop I've been dying to make, but a major challenge. This is by CFS. Well, one prop that I'm really looking forward to building is probably going to be the sniper rifle from Gears of War or one of the crazy Borderlands guns. I do have one of those on my to-do list by DSK001 on Thingiverse. His Borderlands shotgun is a pretty good model. But currently, pretty much all the models that I want to make, I have found models for, or people who will get me models for them. So the only thing that's really stopping me is having the materials to make these things.
And just one more question for you. Sean Butler asked if you plan on making any videos of your painting process.
Eventually, yes, but I am a college student and my next couple semesters are going to be pretty challenging. So
excuses. No.
All right.
Also, I always forget to record it. That's another problem.
Thank you, Devon, for showing off your props. And if you have more, we'll come back around to you again, Devon, at the end of the show. If you have more that you want to show off.
I can grab more.
Probably
I'm in the basement. All of my props are within grabbing distance.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and transition over to Mike. And just for those of you just tuning into the show or not having seen a show and tell before, especially with us streaming on Facebook tonight too, the show and tell show, we try to give each person about 15 minutes, but it's a soft 15 minutes. If the chat's really interested in asking questions, we'll keep going with that person for about 20, 25 minutes. But so we're going to move over to Mike, and Mike is one of the people at AutoDrop 3D. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. And go ahead and tell us about yourself, Mike, who you are, where we can find you, and then, of course, what's AutoDrop?
Hello. So, my name is Mike Molinari, out of Connecticut. I'm with a company called AutoDrop. We started that a couple of years ago, but we started the project a couple of years ago at our local makerspace. It all really came out of me bringing down my 3D printer every week, and then I decided I didn't want to go and bring it down every week. I wanted to leave it there, so that became the makerspace's printer. And then I had to fix the thing all the time because everybody thinks they're a hot shot and can go and adjust the bed screws or tweak all the slicer settings and stuff like that. So the whole AutoDrop project originates out of this problem I had of herding cats and managing 3D printer users who were constantly breaking these printers. So basically, we put together a system. The other guys in the project, I lured them in after I wrote something over 2 weeks. I wrote a thing for managing and queuing prints. And I did it even before I had the printer I intended to use with the system. So once we had a couple of consecutive prints go and kick off of the machine, I was able to lure the other guys in and start working on the project more hardcore. So today, as you can see behind me, this is the part of the print farm I brought to the East Coast Rep Rap Festival. It's not all the machines. I've actually got a couple of machines deployed at other places right now. But I'm just going to kind of get here into the software and show a bit of how this all works. Can you put up my screen?
Yep. There you go.
Okay. So basically, AutoDrop right now, as it stands today, it has part management capabilities. So basically, you can just go and either upload a part and just browse for a part and upload it, or you can create a new part in the system and be able to edit that and work on it actually in the system. And I want to emphasize here, I'm running on a Chromebook, so there is no software actually installed on my computer. It's all happening out in the cloud someplace. So I'm just going to go through and create a new part. So I'm just going to go and make a demo part. And we got a couple of different options here. So I'm actually going to model the part in the system. If I had uploaded it, it would already had like a picture and all that of it. But you basically expose out some of the settings to the user so that they can go and orient their model and set up their infill patterns and stuff like that. So you can turn its support material on or off. You can tell it how much infill percentage you want. You could specify the material that you actually want for the print. And you could reorient and scale your model if you want to. I'm actually going to come over here to the editor. And because I'm streaming my screen, this might take a couple seconds to load. But we have built right into the whole platform a parametric 3D modeler. So I'm just going to go and create a plane and then sketch something here real quick. So let's just draw like a rectangle in there. If you ever used like Siemens NX or SolidWorks or anything like that, this whole kind of a workflow will seem kind of familiar to you. You can go and you can specify dimensions on things. If I wanted to go and update those dimensions, I can just go and change them. That kind of stuff. And, you know, I have these sketch points, which I'm able to click and drag on and all that kind of thing. So this is all running straight here in the web browser. So I'm actually going to go to extrude, going to go and make something here. Let's just say I want to go and put rounded corners on this thing. Maybe I want to go and do that. I can just go and do that. Maybe set the radius to like 3. Boom. Now I got a thing. Maybe it looks kind of like a domino or something. Okay, I'm just going to go and save that out. And give it a second to save. There we are. So there's my part. And now if I actually want to go and get this part made, and this is kind of like the way that our whole system works, I can just go and create an order. And I am part of an organization which has the ERRF location, but I have a whole bunch of other locations that I can send this print to because I'm part of those organizations. But if I hit create order, theoretically, one of these printers behind me is probably going to start unless it goes to one of the other printers, which I've left someplace else. You know what? I think it went to a different printer. Let me just go and shoot this over again and see whether I can get this picked up on one of these guys behind me. Hold on a second here. Let's see. It's going to go someplace here.
While you're doing that, Mike, Carson asked in the chat if you can import models into it, or do you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I just sent a couple of those over. You know what? I'm sorry. I have all of these printers taken offline, and that would make sense as to why they weren't working. Give me a second just to go and put a couple of these machines back online. Okay. If you could switch back over to the camera stream.
Sure.
So the one down here in the bottom corner just picked up a job, and the other one over there just picked up a job. And let me go and enable a couple other printers here. As you can hear in the background, probably there's a lot of a whining noise. So that's the automatic part ejectors, basically clearing the bed at the beginning of the job just to ensure that we were good to go.
Do you want to talk a little bit? I know I got the first-hand advantage of seeing this at Earth, but do you want to talk a little bit about how the part ejection, the way that mechanism works?
Oh, yeah. So, as you know, and you could probably, here, I'm going to actually grab my computer and bring it over there. So, let's see. Which machine would be a good machine to show on? So this machine, I think, is going to start up a job here in a second once I request one. So let me go and just request a job here.
Uncle Ron had the question of, does the software know what filament is loaded in a printer?
Yes. So you specify... Okay, so this actual printer is starting up. So when you're in your printer configuration page, it allows you to specify the material on a printer. And the way, and you can see kind of this back wall is sliding forward. And this thing's sliding out. So we have a stationary blade, a back wall, and the build plate, which slides all the way forward out of the machine. It peels the items off if they're on the print bed, and they all just kind of land in front of the machine. I have some more kind of a detailed pictures of that online as to how that works. If we go back over to my screen, though, I can show the material and kind of the routing options that it gives you, because the jobs are set up in such a way that they're routed to a device based on the size of the device and the material that's loaded on the device. So when you actually create a job, you send it to a location, and then it figures out where to go.
That's pretty neat. Just having that, like for me, having multiple printers of various sizes, having it be able to define, this one can print this and it has PETG in, or it has nylon in it. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Someone also
so one of the
asked
nice things about the
if
way that we
there's
architect
files integration.
Your
if there's
connection was
what
skipping a
kind of
little bit, Mike.
integration?
Sorry,
what kind of integration?
you came in as. Someone asked if there's integration with other file formats, since so much has been done with Fusion. And then they also asked again, this was RC Maniac 25. And then they also asked if it works with other printers besides the model you're using.
Yes. So besides the two models of printers that we sell at AutoDrop 3D, which both have the automatic ejection systems to remove the prints at the end of the job and just basically keep on going all by themselves, you can hook up any kind of Marlin compatible printer to it. We sell a box. You could also go and put together a Raspberry Pi and do it yourself if you wanted to. But we've integrated a lot of different kind of tricks into it. So we have a raft that's easier to peel up, and some other kinds of stuff. But if we go back over to my screen, I can kind of show the settings and whatnot for a printer. So basically, I have an organization, and you can become a member of an organization, so you can add users and whatnot to it. Over here, this is the devices, and you can see all the devices I have online. You can see the material that I have loaded against that device. I mean, I really don't have a red against all of these machines just because I'm lazy and I haven't put in that it's copper, some weird $9 filament from Amazon. But if I open one of these, I got a couple of things here. So basically, I have the API key, which is kind of the password for the printer to connect to the service here. We have the cam profile, which is basically the slicing profile. We have the location that it's tagged against. So these are all my slicing profiles. I could use the same slicing profile for a whole bunch of different machines. We got our print temperature, or you can just manually specify it down here. You have your size, your dimensions actually on the machine. So this is what limits it in the software. And you can also specify your cost of material. So right now, there's two ways of doing this, right? If you specified your cost of material, it can charge people who are in your organization. So for example, if you're at a makerspace and you want to have a member rate and then like a general public rate, you can have two different rates there, and people can send their jobs in, their credit card automatically gets charged, and the machines literally start spinning up all automatically. And of course, you got your start and end G code, which you can fully control, which is pretty nice. You got your locations, which basically you just go and specify your locations that you own, and you can make it public. You can enable moderation if you want for internal or external. You got a lot of different cool stuff here. And then you got your cam profiles, which is basically just a Cura profile. We're using the older 15.04 version of Kira at the moment. We do expect to kind of move that into the future here soon.
Now, Mike, can you expound upon what an organization is, what it means, how you set up one, all that kind of stuff?
So basically, if you're using the AutoDrop system, you can just sign up for an account on the server. Fingers crossed we don't go and take the whole thing down. We do have it set up so that we can scale, but our resources right now are a little bit limited until we can start moving some machines. But basically, if I go to my user account, which is up here, and go to manage account, you have this My Orgs section. So this is how you would create an organization that you would own. And basically, you would just create an org. It would just ask you for a name. Once you have an org, it shows up in this drop-down list. And so if I go like to the Spark makerspace, which is my home makerspace here, and I go to my organization management, you can see these are the devices that are there. This one's online. I only have one over there right now because I moved some around for the shows and whatnot. But then I have my cam profiles. Of course, I got all my users and whatnot. And then, like the location, which you can go and put some kind of info into.
Cool. So this is a one-stop shop for an additive manufacturing facility, pretty much.
So we're not just targeting additive, right? So right now you can pick from this drop down other types of manufacturing processes.
Cool.
They will go into the queue. We're planning on fully featuring laser cutting next. The other ones will just show up in the queue and you can manually go and complete them if you wanted to, right?
That's cool. So if you have a machine shop, then you can still use the program and still incorporate 3D printing or whatever type of machines that can hook up to the network.
Yeah, and if we could figure out whatever kind of CAM software and you had some kind of an auto-feeding machine, it might be a little bit more dangerous to do with a CNC machine, but if you get that tuned right, you got basically a fully autonomous manufacturing operation.
That's super cool.
Yeah, the auto-ejecting printers, because like in a multi-user environment, like a makerspace or a library where you have a whole bunch of people who have to use the machine, since you can get their hands off of the machine, the only thing that they have to do is pick up their part. That makes your life so much easier as an admin because nobody's going to go and screw it up. Nobody's going to go and mess up the printer. I level these things and I level it like every once in a great while because the machine just is static. It just does what it does and it keeps on doing it.
Yeah, that kind of sounds like the printers at my school because they have a bunch of there's just printers in like the common areas that are connected to a bunch of computers, and then all you really got to do is sift through the piles of papers to find out what you printed instead of having to fix it.
Yeah, instead of knowing okay, this is my printer, this is where my print is, let me go get it.
Yeah, so actually as jobs complete, you get these notifications. So these are a little bit washed out because I turned on the lights in here really bright. I was printing out one of those lion things.
The hairy lions.
Yeah, but I've been printing out these little coat hooks because they're really handy. And your browser will actually ding when it's done, like a microwave.
Well, that's nice.
And you get an email notification. So it's really all well put together, and you can see right here, this is the progress on the job. So it's just kind of chugging along there, and it tells you what machine it's gone to or got routed to. If I go and click on this, I can get a little bit more detail, like the actual picture, and compare it.
Someone else, RC Maniac asked another question saying, besides service setup, what modifications are needed for the machine to be added? for like I'm assuming adding a new machine.
So if you're adding a machine to the organization, it's just literally hit create new machine and fill in the blanks. We are going to have some templates here soon, which would be for like, we're probably going to put one in for your standard kind of Prusa machine. We're going to put one in for maybe like the some of the enders or stuff like that. We just have to build those profiles so that we have them in here and you can just pull in those settings. Of course, you can fully manage your printer and set whatever settings you want. Oh, there's one other thing. If I go in here, I'm going to actually open up my local config page. So this is the client software that's running on the printer. So you can specify your offset points in here. So you can actually specify where you want your print to start from, whether it's in the center or someplace else. And you could slice for a Delta machine and kind of transform it for a regular machine. And it does this real time in the streaming of the G code. You also have these Python macros, which you can literally call in your G code. So like this, if I want to call this macro in my G code, I can use a G code comment line, comment at symbol, and then just literally the name of the Python macro, and it will just run the Python macro on the machine. So if you wanted to put in like a receipt printer or do something else clever, you could do that.
That's very cool.
So Mike, you're using a Raspberry Pi for each printer then in this case?
Yeah, there's one Pi per printer, and it manages everything from updating the server, taking the pictures so you have them. It's not live stream. I want to emphasize this. So there's a lot of people who are using like, what's that one called? There's a cloud-based 3D printing thing which allows you to basically remote control joystick your machine across the internet. And that's not what we were trying to set up here. We were trying to set up a manufacturing method. So this isn't for you if you want to go and like just drive your machine across the internet. This is like if you want to go and pump out stuff and just constantly do it.
So a question from Carson or Carson. I'm sorry.
It's Carson, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
That was the one I was about to say.
Oh, no,
you go. You have not asked questions
Go
yet.
ahead.
No, you go.
No, you go.
Go ahead, John.
Okay, fine. Kennison asks, how do the systems handle failed prints? Is there any way to stop the print?
Yeah, so you can if you're in the queue and you own the print. So if you're the owner of the print, you can do a cancel on it. Or if you're the admin of that org, you can also tell it that it failed and to restart it, and it would just go to whatever the next available machine is that matched the specifications on that print. And it tracks the material usage and all that. There's all sorts of fun things that this is doing.
I know you said it wasn't like Octoprint in the sense that you can like remotely control your printer, but can you get updates on your print if you want?
So, I mean, every 30 seconds or every 15 seconds, the progress bar on this webpage with your queue, or if you go into your order, you can actually look at just that one order. That will be updating constantly. So if I hit refresh there, you can see that the numbers update every so often. Let's see, I'm just hitting refresh, see, and there it went, it changed. The other thing is that like if you're on the local network with the machine, it does have a limited kind of a thing here. So it's got a way of doing in 3 calibration points that you can go and adjust your bed screws if you wanted to. It has your home machine. You can go to 000, and you can also just send a line of G code if you want and get a response here. So it's not quite limited, but it's designed more for kind of like an industrial kind of thing rather than being like a joystick, kind of drive it.
So RC Maniac has a question about hardware. He says, if I wanted to do this and sign up for the service, I have to set my. Oh, sorry. I have to. I have a set of printers. What do I need to modify in the machines to add them to the service? So how do you modify the machine to add it to your program?
What do you mean by modify the machine? Because if it's just a Raspberry Pi, it would just be loading up our image and running the software.
Right.
If
So it
it's
runs off of the Raspberry Pi. There's no additional anything you need to add. It's kind of like it's just you put the Raspberry Pi in with the program on it and you hook it in.
yeah, I mean there is you do need a couple of push buttons in order to put it into the Wi-Fi config mode. So like one of the things that these printers do is you can hold down the setting button and it will switch into Wi-Fi access point mode, allow you to put in your Wi-Fi credentials and all that. And then if you press the button again, it'll switch back to your local network and try to connect and do all that.
So your printer has to have Wi-Fi, or the Pi has to have Wi-Fi?
Oh, the Pi. Pi. Yeah.
But
So
your interface to the Pi to activate that is the built-in printer controls. Is that what you were saying?
no. So you would just need some push buttons and hook them actually up to your Pi.
Oh, okay, I got you.
We also do a board which has a bunch of LEDs on it for indication. It's got buttons for ejecting and doing filament stuff. So if you wanted to use the filament sensor on the Pi, it'll actually pause your print, move the nozzle up a little bit, spit the filament out. You can go and you can put new filament in, hit the button, it'll prime the nozzle and start the machine back up. So you got like resume functionality that's handled on the Pi rather than on the printer, because we're trying to make it so that this thing can cover even older devices that didn't necessarily have those kind of features built in without having to do firmware mods.
So do you sell kits then with your software on it?
We have a box, which is the box that hooks up to the printer. It has the Pi hat. It's got the power supply stuff that goes in there. I'm trying to think what else it has. Obviously, it's already got the software installed. And I think, you know what, at this point, we should throw in those filament sensors because that's kind of something that you'd want or need.
Right.
Right.
I think what RC Maniac was kind of referring to. So in order to get up and running with the printer management, all you need is the Raspberry Pi. There's no direct modification to the printer.
No, you just have to hook it up via USB, or I prefer to hook it up with the serial pins if I can, because serial pins are more robust in EMI situations, and because we're driving the ejectors, we like to use the serial pins. But you can use whatever serial port you want. It just shows you a list here of all your.
He's referring to is as far as modifications go, the part ejection.
The part ejection. So the part ejection, we don't specifically have kits out for that right now. We would like to talk to different manufacturers about getting it so that they could have this as a feature on their devices. We did go through the trouble of protecting the IP in that area just because we don't want Stratasys or somebody else coming along and being all like, ha ha ha, gobble something up. That would suck. But yeah, we're pretty reasonable. We just want to go and get this out to as many manufacturers as we can. If you wanted to go and actually build one, you'd have to get a motor controller and a linear actuator. That's the way we're doing it now. But if you had an alternative method of automatic ejection, you could implement that, and in the G code or in the Python macros, you could go and activate that in whatever way you wanted to.
Mike,
so, yeah.
Just for sake of time, I don't want to hold Paul up. Do you think you'd be interested in coming back and doing a full episode on the first Friday of November?
Hell yeah.
That would be Friday the 1st. I think I have a feeling we could probably go a full 2 hours on talking about AutoDrop and all the features of it.
Yeah, I'm surprised by the number of questions. Yeah.
You could probably do more than 2. Like, let's be honest
Yeah,
here.
I feel like this could be a longer stream. And like I said, I don't want to keep Paul waiting, but I have a feeling Paul's probably interested in this just because of his involvement with Octoprint as well. So, Paul, I'll let you voice up. If you're okay with waiting, we can keep going on AutoDrop, or we'll switch to you. It's up to you.
I'm okay right now. I mean, as long as people have questions, you know,
Okay.
get them answered.
I am totally cool also with if somebody wants to work on an Octoprint plugin to hook up to our software. I would definitely work with somebody who is interested in doing something like that. It wouldn't be very hard. Our client's actually up on GitHub, so the protocol isn't that hard.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask you as far as open source or anything, but you just answered that. It's on GitHub.
Some of it is, some of it isn't, right?
Okay.
So like the Cura slicer and the mods we've done to that for the rafting, that's open source. The client software, because we wanted to make it so that it's adaptable to other people's printers, open source, go nuts. The server side stuff and like with all the credit card processing and whatnot, you know, that's I don't want to just go and put that out there right now, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah, but if somebody wanted to get this up and running, say like in my situation, having 12 printers,
Oh hell yeah.
deploy this within my house. I don't need the credit card processing and all that necessarily. I could get up and running with this basically tomorrow.
Yeah, the only time that we would go and try to charge for anything would be if you were setting up a multi-user environment, right? So if you wanted to have a whole bunch of users getting into the system, so that's like you're kind of like a school or a makerspace or something like that, and then it's just a simple kind of subscription to get and manage all those machines.
So you have the client side.
Mhm.
Is it possible for me to run my own server, like say again within my house for the end user?
So you could go and do that, or you could just modify the client so that it would do something else, you know.
Okay.
You could basically do whatever you wanted there.
Gotcha.
And the G-code sender is really, it's rather robust at this point because we've done it on like probably 5 or 6 different types of printers, and I've tried to get all of the weird conditions that you can get for a G-code sender. Of course, we'll probably find more, and we'll need to add more in there, but
Right.
it just works at this point.
And we will, after the stream, there will be links down in the description. Right now, it just has our presenters' names, but I will have links to and where the GitHub and everything. Mike's going to send that over to me. So if you're looking for links and where to find it, I know a couple people just said they found it on GitHub already. You can search GitHub for AutoDrop 3D, or like I said, check the descriptions tomorrow morning. The links will all be there.
Yeah, we have a really old version of the server up there, and that one, I don't know whether it's still compatible with the client as it is today, but that server software was written in PHP, and it's just not really good if you're going to be scaling. We switched over to doing everything in Node, so everything now is rather snappy and able to be deployed in a nice way.
Gotcha. Was there more with the web interface that you wanted to show, Mike?
I mean, I touched on the CAD software, which is pretty nifty. I'm trying to think as far as the web interface, what else we got. So, I mean, you got your part, you can specify the stuff, you can specify your prices. A feature that will be, yes, there is one more thing.
All right.
Assemblies. So are you back on? Yep, you're back on my screen. Okay. So let's just say you got this fun, you got a batch of parts that you want to send to a print farm. And maybe you got like 2 wheels and an axle, and then you want to put that into a car assembly, which contains like doors and other stuff like that. You can do that. So you just specify basically your part as an assembly, and then you get this build of materials, which you can go and you can add parts to. So like, let's just say I want to go and add in this guy right here. So now I can do nested assemblies, and I can just basically add parts to this and just keep on adding them. And now my list has all of these items in it. And if I want to go and send these all to the queue, I just go and hit create order. It creates an order. Let's see. Orders. There we are. So it creates an order with all of those parts in it. And as they get done, we'll see, see that one those got picked up by machines and they're already on machines. But you can do whole batches at a time, which is nice. So I guess that's probably about it for now.
Yeah, I think we'll cover this more in depth. Mike, if you're available November 1st, or we can do it later on too in another stream if that date doesn't work for you.
Yeah, we'll have to just figure that out.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, look forward to a future stream that's going to be all about AutoDrop, because I think there's a lot more that we can dive into here, and I'm sure people will have a lot of questions. So, Mike, do you want to tell everybody again where they can find you and find AutoDrop?
Yeah, so if you go to AutoDrop3D.com, on Twitter, we're at AutoDrop. You can find me personally on as is cool. So you might remember that if you ran into ESP8266 Basic at some point. That was me there. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Okay, we're gonna move over to Paul. Paul, what do you got for us tonight?
Yeah, so I'm Paul Paukstelis. You can find me at Twitter at Paukstelis. That's really the only place that I do much social kind of stuff. I have a YouTube channel where I very rarely post videos. In some ways, I'm talking tonight about something that's kind of similar to what Mike talked about, though his is really more a scalable system meant for rapid distribution of parts to many printers. I wanted to talk a little bit about Octoprint, which is something that I use and love with my 3D printers, and maybe a little dispelling of myths about how you can use Octoprint, as well as really a way that you can, if you're using multiple printers, you can rapidly deploy multiple Octoprint instances on a single machine for like a small print farm at home, or in my case, that's something that I do at work. So I think the big thing that a lot of people think is that if you're going to run Octoprint, you have to be running Octopi, and that you have a Raspberry Pi for every printer that you're going to use. And that gets expensive pretty quickly. And so when I was setting up a print farm at work, basically the main thing that I wanted to do was avoid having to do that. And so effectively what you can do is you can install Octoprint on any system, really. You can get it on Mac, Windows, or Linux. And being a Linux guy, the things that I'm going to be describing are specifically for Linux systems, but you can use pretty much any old hardware you have. So I've set up Print Farm using a Core 2 Duo processor with 4 gigs of RAM, just something old off the shelf, and running 11 printers off of it. And it works just fine for this kind of setup. And just to give you an idea of this, this is nothing as slick as what Mike has, but let me share my screen real quick.
Yep, you're up.
Okay. This is just a real basic sort of dashboard setup that I have for my printers at work. And one of the reasons why it's set up like this is it's easy for students. They can just come in and click on one of these images with printers that have different names. There's 9 of them on here, but I've got others that are hooked up that are only for me to use.
I got to interrupt you, Paul.
Okay.
Down.
Yeah.
Why is the CR10 rude boy and CR10 sick boy?
It's a long story.
Okay. I'm sorry. That was my only question right now.
I'll tell you some other time, but it has to do with me Okay, well, I'll tell it now since I listen to a lot of reggae, and there was, you know, when you're clicking through the LCD screen and you heated something up and you do cool down, there's a reggae song called Cool Down, and it was about Jamaican rude boys who were like Jamaican gangsters basically. And so as I was doing that, I said, I should just name this printer Rude Boy. And then I had another CR10, and so I figured, well, why not have boy in the name? And Sick Boys, you know, like a motorcycle guy. You can refer to the Social Distortion song for that. And then I just started giving all the printers names after that point, because why not? So, but this is, you know, just a real basic API where you can pull up information. You can get what's going on with the printers, right? You can just click on them, and you're at an Octoprint instance. But in this case, this is one computer that's running all of these Octoprint instances here. And essentially all you're doing is you're firing off an Octoprint instance on a particular port for each of these printers. And so what I've developed here is basically a way to make this happen very quickly. So if you're using a single machine, and this could be a Raspberry Pi, but you know, you could use other hardware as well, are basically just some bash scripts which will go through and do a lot of these things for you. And I won't like belabor the point with everything that's in these scripts. But I'll just give you a demo for how this would actually work if you were going to do this. And if I could just very briefly go back to the camera. So maybe you can just see it there. You don't need to go all the way back. I'm just going to use a couple of old boards here as like stand-ins for printers, and just show you how this would work. So back to screen, if you could. And for those of you that haven't installed Octoprint in any way other than putting on an image and putting it on a Pi, it's really very easy to do. I'm in a Linux environment, and basically if you just follow the instructions that are on this page, you'll have an Octoprint installed and ready to go in no time at all. There's a couple of other places that you can look at here, so you can check out these URLs if you wanted to do this and you got stuck in any way. But I've done that now, and I'm basically set up here. And what I'm going to do the very first time through is I'm just going to fire up an Octoprint, start the Octoprint server, and connect to that. There we go. So this is what you would do like the first time that you load up Octoprint, and it'll bring up all this stuff. And I'm going to just go through this relatively quickly, but I'm going to disable access control for this particular case here. You probably want to keep that when you're working on this. And this is just, again, the basic setup. And I'm not worried about really all these things here. If you have specific printers that you want to set up, you could set them up at this point. I will add this, so you can put in the sudo or sudo command, depending how you say it. And this is, I'm using instance here. This is just going to be a placeholder for the scripts that I'm using, so that it'll make this very easy when we're deploying multiple instances of Octoprint. This is going to restart. We'll reload the server. And I'm just going to do one other thing, which is to set up the serial connection here. And I'm going to add in this additional serial ports. We are going to have our device set up. And then I'm going to give this a base name here, which is going to get replaced when we go through this. So that's all I needed for this at this point. I'm just going to kill the server. And I'll show you the next step in this process. So basically, I have on this GitHub, if you want to check this out, here's the GitHub repository that I have. Oops, it's kind of loud. And I'm just going to run this little bash script. and it's called Add New Printer. And hopefully you can see this. Let me see if I can just crank up the size a little bit of the fonts. Okay. Can you see that down there? Yeah, okay. So what it's asking now is just to put an instance for the name of the printer. So I'm just going to do printer 01 in this case. It's going to ask for what port you want this to run on. At this point, I don't have any other of these instances set up, so I'm just going to hit enter. And though this is now going to be defaulted to port 5000 here. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to set this up as a service. So every time you restart this computer now, it's going to fire up the Octoprint instance that we want for a particular printer. So I'm just going to, all of these things are defaulted here. So I'm just entering through these. You can set these different paths if you need to. And this is kind of a neat feature now. So it's asking if we want to auto detect the serial number. So what this is going to do is it's going to use, in Linux, it's going to use udev. So it'll detect the serial number of the printer board itself, and then automatically set up an alias for that. So when you start your Octoprint instance, you don't have to worry about which serial device it is. It'll automatically always go back to that particular one. So I'm just going to plug in the board in here, and in just a second, oh, I need to say yes, which I didn't do. I probably failed that now.
That mechanism there for detecting and keeping the serial port the same, is the Octoprint instance like switching which port it is based on the serial number that it's looking to find, or are you doing some Linuxy magic?
That's Linuxy magic, but that happens. It's transparent to Octoprint essentially. So you can see now here it detected the serial number of that. So I'll show you what that actually does, and then asks if you want to proceed. You just click yes here, and it has everything updated now at this point, I hope. And now if we, so this was installed at port 5000. So now if I actually reload this, in theory, I need to actually reload.
Your default for Octoprint port 80 forwards back to port 5000. So
it should be 5000. And actually here now you see that we have Octoprint 01 as the printer there. And we can actually, if we know what the baud rate is now for the particular printer, you can just save these connections and connect, and we're connected to that printer. I should point out there were a couple other things that I could do. For example, if you wanted to change the title of this, you could go through and in the settings here, when you're putting this together, I forgot to do this, right? If you, in appearance here, if you change this title and you just put instance here, the first time you put it through, it actually changed the title as well.
Oh.
So you know, you could have, you basically have it all set up in one little go. And just to show you that how quickly you can do this now, once you have the first one set up, I'll kill this. So now this is, yes, go ahead.
I was going to just remind the chat, if you have questions for Paul, go ahead and post them in the chat, Facebook and YouTube. We're paying attention to both chats.
So I can, this is a service now, so I can stop that service. We're not running that anymore. I could leave it going. It doesn't matter, but I just wanted to show that we could do another printer very quickly now. So if I do the same thing, this add new printer, call this printer 02. I can just push enter now, and you can see now it's actually incremented the port. So we're going to a different port now. All of this can be the same. We can say auto detect. I'm going to grab a different board here.
I love that you're just using the bare board for the demo.
Yeah, right. So now it picks up the serial number for that one. we do this, proceed, yes, and it takes a couple of seconds to write everything out. I think I have a pause in there too to make sure that, and now you can see we have a printer to service. And again, it's set up so that these services will start at reboot. So if your control system reboots, everything will be going again. And now this should be running on localhost 5001. And we're there. And if we just check to make sure. Okay. It always takes a second to.
Paul, you got a question.
Okay.
Geek Tech has asked how many printers would be the limit? Like how many printers can you do this with?
I don't know. It's a lot. I mean, I've have 11 going on one machine, but I know you could do more than that. The bandwidth is not that significant for a printer. And I've had all 11 printers printing at the same time.
I have a really old desktop that I threw Ubuntu on. Paul, I wished you'd have had this like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
But I'm running 12 printers off of one computer. I mean, when you log into the graphical interface on that computer, it's slow to begin with, but it's handling 12 instances of Octoprint, all printing at the same time, no problem whatsoever.
Yeah. It will slow down. So, you know, if you have, and if you have a lot of clients connected to Octoprint at the same time, that will slow things down. So, you know, on this web page, also, if you're doing camera streaming, right, that's actually gonna soak up more resources than actual printing. So that's the basis of it. So now essentially, you know, if I look at printer processes here, status printer 02. Right, we've got this process running that will now start up every single time, and it'll connect to the correct USB address, and we'll be, you know, have all of our printers ready to go. The other advantage of this, I think you can take off screen share now. The other advantage of this is that when you want to update Octoprint, or if you want to update Octoprint plugins, you actually just do it once. And then you can restart all of the Octoprint instances, and all of those plugins and the Octoprint itself is already updated.
I was going to ask you how it handles plugins, because the way I did instances, plugins and updates tends to want to break things.
It shouldn't. The only case where you can get some, if you've got different printers of different types, you can end up with incompatible plugins. So if you're using like a printer that's using, like, I think you have a FlashForge, right? Yep. If you're using the GPX plugin for that, so that you can stream directly to that printer, stream G-code to that printer, you don't want that running on all your other printers. So if you install that plugin, you have to then either disable it in all the other instances. But one of the things that you can do with this is that you can install Octoprint multiple times, and only install the plugins that you want on one of those installations of Octoprint. Okay. And then only and with this script, right, you just tell it which Octoprint installation you want to use for that.
Gotcha. Sorry, Sean. You can deploy plugins across all of it and then go back through and just disable it. Well.
Yeah, you can.
Way to do it.
Yeah, you can do that as well.
Go ahead, Sean. Sorry about that.
Say what?
Weren't you going to say something?
No, my mic was muted.
Oh, okay.
No, I was going to ask about
you're awesome.
So do you set it up first with the plugins and then do the deployment, or if you're post deployment, if you install a plugin on one of them, will it go to all of them?
It'll go to all of them once you restart the Octoprint instance. Yeah.
I may be wiping out my Octoprint server and use an Octoprint deploy. I did throw the link in the chat, YouTube and Facebook, if anybody wants to go to the GitHub that Paul has set up for this.
And it is a Linux thing, and it is command line, but it's really not complicated. So if you've set up an Octopi server before, you've got to do a little bit there too. So roughly the same thing.
Yeah, way easier than the way that I did it. I mean, I have issues if I try to have all my instances boot up on startup. Some will start, some won't. But like I did, like what your plugin's doing, where it's creating a device ID that you can then easily readable or human readable device ID to select. I did all that by hand, and like just
Right.
Got is way quicker. It took me a weekend to set up what I have.
Right. And actually the motivation for me to put those scripts together was I did it all by hand as well on my little print farm at work. And the guys at Terrapin Works, they were at IRF. I don't know if you got a chance to swing by their table, but they've got something called the MakerBot Innovation Center, and they've got like 30 or 40 MakerBot printers, and they were using, whatever it was networking setup that they had, which they're no longer supporting, I understand. And so they're planning on, basically getting rid of all of those and upgrading to Prusa's. And they had heard that I had this setup, and they wanted to know if they could use something similar, and instead of having a Pi for every single printer, if they could deploy, Octoprint instances quickly. And I was like, yeah, I think I could automate a lot of the stuff that I have done for this. So that was how this actually came about.
That's very cool. I'm ready to wipe out my server and do it again.
So what's your background in, Paul?
My background is in molecular biology.
Oh, okay. So completely different.
Yeah, no, I'm a scientist, but I got into 3D printing for the educational side of things. So I teach biochemistry, and then I just sort of, it caught hold. I've always been kind of a tinker, and then that got me sort of in the hardware side of things, and then software side of things, and even firmware side of things. So the last time I was on one of the show and tells, I was talking about some Marlin modifications, which actually were just released today. So they got integrated into Marlin, so you can cancel individual objects from multi-object prints directly from Marlin.
Very cool.
Awesome. Does anybody have any more questions for Paul in the chat? I think we got two really neat options for operating multiple printers from a web interface, so to speak. Having AutoDrop, which serves your whole print farm, industrial, classroom type of deal, and then Paul's option with Octoprint, which is obviously a very popular package to control your printers, whether you want to do it remotely. Like Mike had mentioned with Octoprint, you can sit there and see your camera live, drive the printer. I've done it to clear failed prints while I'm at work and restart a print, things like that. Really neat way to set up multiple instances. Easiest way I've seen yet, for sure.
And I think the neat thing is having those options, as you say, right? I mean, Mike's the system is so cool for large scale. The way that you can get that set up for large scale. I've got a couple of printers behind me, and I basically use this exact thing that I had to get them going in just a matter of minutes, which is great for the small scale.
There's another question by Geek Tech. He asked, do you think I would run into any issues trying to tie Octolapse into this?
Nope. You wouldn't. I mean, other than the normal issues that Octolapse has for some people. Right.
Our Maniac also asks if you could possibly update the read'em on the GitHub page for people who don't know how to work with Linux or don't know how to run the program or not versed in the lingo.
Yeah, I planned on doing that before we went on air, and as you can see, I did not. But yes, I will. I've uploaded the stuff, and that's as far as I made it. I will do that.
Just remember, for now, you can fast forward into tonight's hangout into about the hour mark is about when Paul took over. So you can pretty much get the run through from the stream for now till Paul does update the README. And just another comment with Geek Tech's question about using Octolapse. Like Paul said, if you can get Octolapse to work, great. Plenty of people have, but plenty of us have failed at it too, or failed our prints because of it. Your bigger problem there is if you're going to try to run Octolapse on multiple printers, running cameras, your biggest bandwidth problem is going to end up being operating cameras.
Yep.
That many cameras.
I was going to ask about that. Like, do you have a similar way of pairing the camera with the Octoprint instance that you do with pairing the printer with an Octoprint instance?
Yes, that I don't have that automated. That's more difficult to do. But you can do the same kind of pairing if you go in and do some editing of UDEV files in Linux. The other challenge that and actually this is another thing on my, if you look at my GitHub, I have a number of little small tools there. But I didn't get a lot of money to set up this print farm. So I spent it mostly on printers and filament, and the webcams I basically bought out of my own pocket, and I bought like cheap $4 ones, right? That are just YUV webcams, no MJPEG compression or anything. Those soak up, I mean, basically all of your USB bandwidth that you have. You can only run two cameras per USB bus that you have on your printer, and that's like the max. So I actually have another thing for this farm that I have, which is it's another series of bash scripts basically that will actually go through and rotate the cameras. So when you select, if you're in one Octoprint instance, you're looking at one printer and you select that, it'll actually rotate. So it'll turn off a camera and then on another printer that is no longer active, and then turn on the current camera so that you can get around some of those bandwidth limitations that you have.
Oh, that's real nice.
Paul, I actually had a question. So, well, obviously the viewers don't know, but before the stream, we were talking about a couple different Octoprint plugins. Like I have the Telegram plugin, so it texts me with pictures of the print as it progresses. Could you still do that with all your instances?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and the other thing that you can, and this is something that I need to document, and I'll see if I can describe it simply, but you can tailor all of those instances however you want, in the sense that if you did it how I did it in this demonstration, it's going to use the same API key for all of the printers. But you could, if you wanted to, have include different API keys for the different printers. If you had the Telegraph plugin, I don't actually know what all the things are that you had to set up for the Telegraph plugin. I haven't used it myself, but you could then modify for each of the instances the information that you need for the plugins. So it could send out different information.
You're going to need, if you have 12 printers, you're going to need 12 Telegram bots. That's pretty much. Like that's what I think you might need, at least for the API keys. It per API key, at least from what my limited knowledge of getting it to work with my printer.
So that's the thing, is that I think is if you're using the same, you could use the same API key for each of the instances.
That would be fun.
In which case you will just get an instance that you get a notification that your print's done, right? You wouldn't necessarily know what printer it was, but you would get a notification that it was done.
Yeah, because I'm doing that with not Telegram, but oh crap! Now the name just left me.
I've used Push Bullet, I think it's called. Yeah, and I've done that. So if you can set up multiple printers to send the same push to the same push notifications.
All right. Are there any other questions for Paul? I know what I'm playing with this weekend. And like Paul said, you can. I'm using a computer that's at least 12 years or older, and heck, I don't even think it's a dual core. You have an old laptop laying around that you're not using. number one, throwing Ubuntu on it already frees up a lot of space. I mean, a computer that can't run Windows anymore can still run Ubuntu half the time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So even if you have an old laptop and you have multiple printers, laptops take up a lot less space. Boot it up, close the lid, and stand it up on its side off in the corner, and it can be your print server.
Yeah, that's exactly what I have. I don't know if you can even see next to the microscope, right? I mean, that's my laptop that just runs whatever printers I have at home. I mean, I've had like between 2 and 6, and just plug them all into there with the USB hub. It works fine.
Yeah. All right. I'm not seeing any more questions other than Ryan trying to figure out why Nightbot keeps beating him up. Sorry about that, Ryan.
I got scared for a second. All of his messages disappeared.
Yeah. I got to dial into some of those settings on Nightbot. Occasionally it gets a little too aggressive.
You probably deserved it at one point.
Well, he was talking about making a print farm behind Carson's back while Carson was watching the chat. So,
see, karma.
And then my response was, "Oh, it's our third collab of the year. It's fine."
A question for the chat. I know Devon went and grabbed some more props or some more 3D prints that she painted and finished. Let us know if there's more you want to see. Going to go on to Sean. I know he's got some stuff he'd like to show off or talk about. So we're going to move over to Sean, but then let us know in the chat if you want to hear more from Mike, if you want to hear more from Devon, let us know and we'll come back around to them as long as they're willing to hang out with us.
Also, just so you know, I put it in our private chat, but I have been given permission to give more information about my 2 collabs with the Geek Tech family.
There you go. So stick around for Sean to do his, and we'll come back to Devon to give some insider information.
She can do hers first. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we'll move over to you.
Yeah, Sean, you can go first. Suspense.
Welcome, everybody. I hope you all are having a great Friday night. Work is over. We are all hanging out. It is a awesome night. So I am revamping my YouTube channel. So it occurred to me, like, I'm not having a lot of fun. Like, I'm pushing stuff out, but it's very, very slowly. And that's fine because that's what I do. Like, I have a life too. And I know I'm not really big into the YouTube game, but it's something I just like to do, just to share things that I do and techniques that I've learned over the years. So my background originally is in film and television. I used to work out in Los Angeles. I used to work in film and television out there. I was a grip, and I was a second AC, and I was a set decorator, and then I did props. So I did a whole bunch of stuff, and I don't do that anymore. I work in 3D printing. I work for PO Poly, and you can see the Phenom right there, which is super awesome. So I'm going to be doing a lot of projects with that. So it's come to my realization that I just don't have any hobbies anymore, because my hobby became my job, and now it's just not a hobby. It's just, it's work now. But I still love it all the same, but now it's not like something I do, on the side. I don't have any place to do anything extra. So I decided to take everything that I did, all of my experience from the past, all of my previous jobs, working in film, doing some small comic books, doing graphic design and art, and throwing it all into one, including 3D printing. And so with that said, now I'm going to be doing a lot more stuff that have to do with film and television, and most importantly, printing for 3D printing for film and television. So I'm going to be going through processes of, okay, these are the kind of props you need. These are the set pieces you need. These are the practicals, which it could be a light or some sort of camera off in the distance that projects a light. So anything that really has to do with the set or interaction with a character or an actor, I'm going to start doing that kind of stuff because that is more of my realm. And it's now going to become my old job is becoming my hobby now. So that's kind of cool. It's pretty meta at this point. So, so right now, we are going to be, I say we, because now I'm going to be working with 3D modelers, and specifically Chris Freezy. You guys might know him as Inspire 3D. Him and I are doing some collabs, and he doesn't have a YouTube channel or anything, but you can find him on Twitter. I watched him start 3D modeling from the beginning, and his stuff has evolved over time. And I think he needs a push and he needs a purpose for his stuff. And I asked him, I said, hey, can you help me do some props? I have a film in mind that I want to do. So how the channel is going to run is I'm going to show you how to print the props. Well, from the beginning, from the concept art. So it's going to be concept art, what is the prop going to be in? How's it going to be used, or the set piece or whatever. And then it's going to envelop into a short film. So a 5 to 10 minute film that you can watch on my channel with all the 3D printed stuff for that short film that you'll be able to see being used on screen. So we're going to start. I mean, there's different types of props. So it's 100% different than cosplay. And that's the point I want to kind of show and cultivate, because there's really not a lot on YouTube or on the internet on, okay, so filmmakers or independent filmmakers don't really know how to use a prop, or they just buy an airsoft gun, or they just buy a sword from a trade show, or there's not a lot of thought that goes into it that, hey, there's 3 different types of props that you need for the same prop. So, so if you're doing a pistol of some sort, you're going to need one that the slide actually actuates. It needs to go back and come forward. It doesn't need to fire. It just needs to go back and come forward. And then there's another prop where it's a solid piece where it's going to be on screen and you're going to see it all the time, but it's not going to be the one that actuates. So there's 2 different props right there. And then there's a third one where you're going to see all the close-ups, the barrel, the slide, the trigger, everything. So that one has to be as realistic as possible. It has to be very accurate and very detailed, because you are going to be seeing that on a macro level almost, pretty much. So there's 3 different types of props. And there can be more depending on how involved you want to be in your prop making. So I've been seeing a lot of cosplay out there, and that is super awesome, and I 100% support that. But this is the other side of prop making. This isn't like the showpiece. I'm going to a con. There's a lot of different things that are involved in that as well. This is more of, this is going to be on screen. We're shooting a film, and I'm not buying anything that's real. I'm 3D printing stuff. So 3D printing original stuff, and you all are going to be seeing it, but it cannot look 3D printed. So one, that's where resin printing comes in. And I am going to emphasize that because it's going to take your whole process of 3D printing is going to now be, or not even just 3D printing, but your whole process from start to finish, from concept to a finished product, is going to be shortened, because you don't have to do all that sanding and everything. But there is also downsides to it as well, brittleness and whatever. So I'm going to be going over like different resins to use, how you should be priming it, how you should be sanding it, the whole process throughout the whole thing, from the drawing, from the concept art. So right now I'm doing a lot of concept art. I don't know if you can see that. So this is one of the drawings I've done out of the many. So we are actually working on a cyberpunk film. A little spoiler. So we're doing a cyberpunk. So it's futuristic, but it's also post-apocalyptic, but it's also this and that and this and that. And the lighting is a lot of purples and blues and reds and neon signs, and it just expands into, you got to create a world. So we're going to go through that as well. But we're also going to explain how 3D printing your designs can go into that world that you are creating. The scene has to envelop you and has to pull you in and has to look a certain way. And even though I'm not in Hong Kong or I'm not in Korea or I'm not in anywhere that has I'm in Ohio, guys. Like, I am in Cowtown here. So we have to figure out how to make the set look like I am in a New York area or a China or Japan area where there's, a downtown area where there's a lot of lights and stuff like that. But you also have to think this is 10 minutes. So how are we going to shoot a 10-minute film with the 3D printed props with this environment that we don't have and make it make sense? So I'm going to go through all that process. It's going to be a big series, but the whole channel is going to be based upon that. And this is kind of, this is going to be really cool. I mean, this is going to be awesome because I get to do something that I love. The only thing I do outside of 3D printing all day is climbing, rock climbing. And, I go out into nature for that, and camping and hiking and backpacking. But that's more of a sport. It's not really a hobby. So this is kind of now becoming my baby, and I'm super, super excited about this. It's going to be really cool. So I get to, get my lenses out. I get to get my camera out. I get to do storyboarding and concept art and script writing and world building and everything, editing, special effects, visual effects. So it is a big undertaking, but I want to do it, and this is what I'm going to be doing. So I hope you guys get excited about it, because I am. And I know this is like a big, like, oh, Sean's promoting his stuff, but I am just so excited about it. I needed to share it. I couldn't keep it anymore. And go check out Chris Freezy, Inspire 3D on Twitter and Instagram. Go check out his stuff, because he just released some Halloween stuff. He 3D modeled. And with the channel, we're going to be releasing all the kits from the concept design. Everything's going to be open source. Everything's going to be for everybody to see and use. And I would love to see what you do with it. And if you like to do little films, shoot a little film with it and tag us in it. We'd love to see that. So that is pretty much all that there is to that. I'm super excited. This is going to be real fun.
Awesome.
You did get a question, by the way. Geek Tech said his favorite prop is the hero prop, and he asked, what was your favorite? I don't...
Well, here a hero prop means a prop that is on screen the most. That is your hero prop. So I don't know if he means like from Heroes, the TV show, or like...
Which one's your...
No. But my favorite prop in general would probably be... there's so many. So many out there. Well, one that everyone knows is the cricket. The noisy cricket from Men in Black. That is probably one of my favorite props that have been used. And it's also been used as a set piece as well. So that's kind of cool.
Where can everybody find these videos that you're going to be putting out, Sean?
You can find all these videos on YouTube at Seananigans or Art Mods. I always forget which one it is. I'm sorry. I should know that. But I think it's Seananigans. It should be Seananigans. So everything's going to be revamped. I'm also going to be going over like editing tips and sound effects and where you can get all that kind of stuff, and going over editing, slicing. It's going to be a big thing. So like it gets really involved, but you will see the short film at the end of it. But yeah, you can find me on anywhere really as Shenanigans or Art Mods.
Hey, Sean, what's going to be the ratio of in the making content to the actual film itself? Like, is it going to be like a 300 to 1, or like what are we talking about here?
So I'm planning on doing 5 videos up until the film. So it's going to be concept art, and then it's going to be printing, and then it's going to be painting, and then it's going to be anything really filler in between that, to kind of, depending on what people are asking for. So it could be anything between editing, or it could be photography, or it could be story building, and then it's going to be the video. It's going to be the actual film. So it'll be 4 videos, and then the 5th video will be the film.
Cool. Any other questions? Any of our other presenters have any questions for Sean? I know Sean's been chomping at the bit to get this out, but didn't want to say it just yet. So I'm glad you finally got to share it, Sean.
Thanks. Yeah,
It's
been a long time coming. So.
Yeah, I know you've been working on it since before we started the show and tells, and every
Yeah,
time
since last year.
but I don't want to say yet.
Yeah,
Finally got it out there.
thank you. Yeah, I've been pent up with it, and it's been a whole year trying to develop everything and get everything set. So I'm super excited, and I didn't know if this was like the right time to say it, because it probably wasn't, but I was gonna say it anyway because I'm just super excited about it, and it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Very cool.
It's not a specific question for Sean, but I think one of the things that what he talked about sort of brought up that, I don't know, like maybe we need a broader discussion on it. And I saw Dave Randolph mention something in the chat as well, as, not having hobbies and turning your hobbies into your profession, and like just how you deal with that, I know
Yeah, so it's complicated because it's just another day. Like when I first started 3D printing, there was a different type of community. I mean, it's the same community, but it was way different than it is now. And those people pushed me the same traits carried on. But it was actually trying to figure out what 3D printing is. Like, how do you 3D print? I've been 3D printing for quite some years now, and it started off with, like, you only have, like Mike was saying, you only have a couple filaments to choose from, or 1 or 2, and now you have like a plethora. And at the time it was so fun, and I was building printers and I was ordering kits, and it became a big addiction. And I had 12 printers at one point. And then
I know your pain.
Then you start working. Sorry.
I said, I know your pain.
Yeah, right. I don't have that many anymore. I do, but they're all broken down into kits again. But then, like, you start working in the industry, and it's kind of weird because, like, everything opens up and you kind of see the broad spectrum of things. And you see what people are complaining about. And it's like, okay, I understand that you're complaining about that, but there's a reason why that feature wasn't added, or why that company didn't choose to do that. And you start seeing the market as a whole. So it's kind of like driving by a farm. You see the cows out there, you see the horses out there, you see, everything out there, but you're like, why do you have so many cows? And why do you have this many males against this many females? Why do you have so many bulls and so many cows? And then you start to realize, well, there's a whole industry behind that, and there's a reason they have that many for that reason, because maybe they're not a meat farm, they're a milk farm, a dairy farm, or they're a ranch that does other things, or it's a big ecosystem. So 3D printing and the industry is a big ecosystem, and there is so many companies out there now that are trying to get into the 3D market that aren't working, or a lot of old companies that aren't making it these days because of the because of how the market is forming. there's so many low end printers, or not low end. I'm sorry, that was wrong. Low cost printers coming out that are in a different ballpark than high end printers, and a lot of people that buy the high end printers, or the high marketed printers, are the out of manufacturing companies or industrial companies or people that can afford it. And then the lower end, you see the $200, $300, $400 even printers coming out, and those are more marketed towards the people that are getting into 3D printing, the hobbyists, or people who just want a lot of printers for a low cost. And then, but with those low cost printers, you see a lot of features that are left out, and people are complaining about that. But that is for a reason. That's to keep that cost down. That's because you don't need that as an introductory 3D printing operator. You don't need. Okay, sorry. Say hello. Say hello. Ba, 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 ba. All right.
She
He won't be on camera.
figures if she gets there, she'll get petted every now and then.
So, say what?
I said she sees your hands moving. She figures if she stands there, she'll get petted every now and then.
Yeah, I know. I've been ignoring him all night, and he's just like, "All right, love me now."
The funnier thing was Carson was just saying that you promised her a cat, and then your cat came on.
Yep, he knew.
Yeah, so now we know your cat can read.
Oh yeah, he can't. Oh, he's smarter than a whip, and needy as heck. So turning 3D printing, not turning, but moving from a hobbyist into somebody within the industry. Every single day, I'm 3D printing, and I'm doing something that I love to do. It turns from a hobby to a job, but you're still 3D printing, and you still love to 3D print. And then you have to, like, I work in marketing and community management. So now I have a different outlook on the actual products or the printers or resin or whatever it is. I used to make filament. So there's a complete different outlook on everything. And you start thinking about things a different way and wanting the way I market is way different than everybody else does, because I want to show off what other people are doing with printing, with modeling. I want to show off modelers. I want to show how you can print on a 3D printer with a certain model. I want to put out tricks and tips and get people comfortable with 3D printing. I'm not there to promote a product like the Phenom, which I'm there. I'm promoting the product Phenom, but I don't want to promote the printer really. I want to promote what you can do with the printer, because that's the most important thing. Like, a 3D modeler needs to know, okay, can I print my models on this printer or on the Moai? Can I print my models on the Moai? And with that, you want to kind of show that model being printed. So you got to ask for permission and talk to the modelers and all that, and that's great. And then you establish a relationship, and then you can take that modeler or that designer or whoever it is and be like, yes, here. I know you don't have this, but here is what it looks like. You can do it. And I think that is the coolest thing. And you get a different type of respect for 3D printing and a different outlook on 3D printing, working in the industry. No matter if it's resin or if it's making filament. When I made filament, I'd always love to see what people are doing with the color or with the material. It's just one of those things that's gratifying and that makes you just want to keep doing it because of the community. And the community, this community, all of you, everyone who's watching is detrimental to this industry and the success of this industry and of 3D printing in general. Everybody listens to you. If you put something out there on social media, someone's watching you. Someone's going to take that feedback, and it's going to go back to the designer or the engineer or the CEO or somebody. So you are heard. The power of the community is 5,000% strong. It is so strong, and you guys are heard all the time. So it is 100% different being my hobby from me being a hobbyist to being in the industry, because now instead of me being the complainer, I can see you guys complain and be like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Now I feel like a jerk from when I used to do it. Like, I understand now. So it's different, but it's fun, and I love it all the same.
Very cool, Sean. Ryan said he's going to make sure that Carson watches all of your videos so that he can better explain why he needs a resin printer. All right. Anything else, Sean?
No, I think the jabber of my jaw is done.
All right.
Unless anyone has questions.
I'll switch over. I know I told our presenters that I probably wasn't going to show anything, but then I thought about something. You guys know from the previous streams that I was working on a large project for my fire company, which actually had to be done the Wednesday before Earth, which is why at Earth I was extremely tired because I've gotten very little sleep up until I came home from Earth. But so my fire company had our open house, and during National Fire Prevention Week, we go around and we visit elementary schools. We teach the kids about fire prevention, fire safety, and what to do in an emergency. This year, the NFPA, for those of you not in the United States, that's the National Fire Protection Agency. They pick a theme for National Fire Prevention Week each year. This year, the theme was Not Every Hero Wears a Cape. So as soon as I heard that, I decided to take off and run with it for our open house and the school visits. We brought the superheroes along to the elementary schools to meet the kids, and then again had the superheroes at our open house. They helped with demonstrations where we did a vehicle rescue. And part of my preparation for that I've been working on for the last 3 months is creating the props. And you can see the Iron Man helmet. The eyes are lit up on it. I just have it plugged into my power supply right now. This was all one print. It's the Iron Man helmet from Endgame. Did this one. I did Captain Marvel. The eyes light up on Captain Marvel just the same. The way I did the eyes is I took and put sheets of acrylic, actually recycled from the scraps that Printed Solid creates, making their enclosures. I just cut out rectangles, but before I cut them out, you can see if I get super close, you can kind of see the lines really faint on the acrylic. There's LEDs up above them about an inch above each of the lenses, projecting down onto the edge, which edge lights all those light engravings on it, makes the eyes light up. The cool part is the actors that I had wearing the helmets could see out, but you couldn't see in when they were wearing them. Because they're so faint, you could actually see through it. It just looked a little hazy to them, kind of like a foggy day. But I did Captain Marvel's helmet, and this does have a jaw piece, but if the jaw piece is printed on the helmet, the actor couldn't put the helmet on. So the jaw piece actually went up inside and just perfectly fit. It acted like a hinge. It would move with her jaw and everything. The one specialty with this one is my niece actually was the one wearing the helmet. I don't know if you guys can see the row of LEDs on the inside there. Of course, there it goes. So I have RGB LEDs in the top. It's kind of bright on the camera. My niece has short hair, and she wore the helmet with her hair spiked up through it. I'm going to unplug this because I keep freaking my computer out. She wore it with her hair spiked up through the middle, and the LEDs projected the light into her hair, so it made her hair look like it was on fire or glowing like Captain Marvel's hair does in the movies. So that was that. And then last one's big. Did Captain America's shield. This was done in 5 pieces. I hope you guys can hear me back here. This is done in 5 pieces. I'm getting thumbs up. Thanks, guys. Everywhere that the inside corner of the star down to the center, it designates a quadrant. So from here coming up is 1 piece. From here up, so everything in here is 1 piece. 5 of those, 3 printed on 1 CR10, actually this one, and 2 printed on that one in about a day it took to print this. And then on the back side, I just went to Walmart and bought a kid's belt, cut it up, and stuck it on the inside for the grips and the arm strap for it. This actually was my least favorite one of all the props that I created for this whole thing. And it turned out to be the number 1 prop that I got compliments on. So everybody liked this way more than I did. And then the last one I no longer have to actually show. I created Thor's hammer. And I'll show you guys a video. Hopefully my phone will come across. Let me turn the volume up here real quick. This is going to be a little bit noisy. So for those of you with headphones, give you a second to turn your volume down. There is a fire truck running in the background, so it might be a little bit noisy for you.
Did you just crush Thor's hammer?
So that was the end of our vehicle rescue demo. The firefighters started showing the public how we train with the Jaws of Life. And one of the things that we do with that is we pick up soda cans without crushing them and stack them. And you see, we make a game of it, but it teaches us the precision of using the tool so that when we are in tight areas around a patient, things like that, we can use the tool. I mean, that tool weighs probably right around about 60 to 80 pounds, something like that. It's a hydraulic, basically a hydraulic pair of pliers, more or less, but they're ginormous. So we wanted to show the strength of it, because when I explain it to kids, I always tell them that we can take a piece of metal, and usually like at the schools, I'll point to a desk or something like that and tell them we can crush it as small as a pancake. Well, Spider-Man was worthy because he was wielding the Jaws of Life, but Spider-Man got a little antsy and over-gripped. So that's what I was working on for the last 3 months. All the painting was done since September. And this was part of the reason why we didn't have a stream 2 weeks ago, was because it was crunch time. Everything had to get done. I was up till 4:30 in the morning and had to be at the schools at 7:30 in the morning finishing the props. All the LEDs in the Captain America helmet I had to hand solder all those RGB programmable LEDs together because I didn't have a flexible strip that I thought I had. So that's what I've been doing. Now, the next project that you'll get to see next month is my daughter's dressing up like Buzz Lightyear for Christmas. And Party City sells a really nice Buzz costume, except it doesn't come with the wings or the jetpack. So
You gonna make the extendy wings?
if I have time, that's the big question. Right now, I modeled the jetpack and the wings in Fusion 360. They are going to have electronics in it, and I'm actually going to put buttons under her costume where the I think it's red, blue, and green buttons are on Buzz. So when she pushes them, there'll be a little what's Adafruit's soundboard, the trinket, I think.
I don't know.
I forget what it's called.
That's a question for Amy, not me.
We'll have a trinket in the jetpack with a speaker and an amplifier in it. So when she pushes the buttons, the soft buttons on her costume, it actually makes the sounds. But we're going to make them my 3-year-old saying the different sayings instead of Buzz Lightyear saying them. And my wife and I jokingly started calling her Bay Lightyear instead of Buzz Lightyear because her name's Bailey. So that's we get done the stream and the jetpack's going to be printing. That's the first part.
But you gotta set up your Octoprint again first.
Those two aren't on Octoprint. Well, they are, but they're in Raspberry Pis. The ones over on the outside of the office are the ones that I have on the server. So that's what I've been doing.
I think you did a great job. I think that's really awesome. The actors were, like some people were saying, the actors were on point. Everything was good.
Yep.
The education got through to everybody. And your pieces were really, really cool. I really liked them.
I had a lot of issues. The Captain America shield actually got shattered at one point into multiple pieces because I had them outside. I'd painted them in the morning or primed it, I guess, before I went to work. I went to work and it started raining. Fortunately, I was driving towards the storm. So I called my wife. I said, hey, can you put them inside? So she brought them in, sat them in our hallway on the floor. And when my daughter came home from school, she came around the corner, I guess, and stepped on Captain America's shield, not knowing it was there.
Oh.
Fortunately, I had time to, calm down before I got home. This was
sense of panic sets in.
I have it done.
You're right.
I was like, I had no idea what to do, but I came home. I just picked up the pieces. I took them outside and got the big bottle of super glue out and started going to town putting it back together.
I had a similar situation last week. I had my swords laying on the floor in the living room, and my dad was like, Devon, if you leave these here, they're going to get stepped on. I'm like, Dad, they're next to the coffee table. If one of you step on them, it's definitely going to be on purpose. And he just got really mad at me, so I ended up moving them.
There you go.
So I got a question for all the people who do the props. When do you consider using other materials besides 3D printing when you're building stuff? Like if you were doing, I don't know, a replica rifle or something like that, would you ever go and use like a piece of pipe or, other things?
So for me, multi-material is actually super important with prop making. You can do it all 3D printed, which is great. But if what you are making is going to be seen by a lot of people and you want it to be as realistic as possible, say if you like a rifle, like you're saying, that barrel has got to be made out of metal. That barrel has to be hollowed out, or the model has to be, designed to put that piece of metal in, or you could drill it in or burn it in, however you want. But I think if you're going for realism, the 3D printed parts need to be the most detailed parts that are on that prop.
Yep.
It has to make sense. So if your slide or your ejection cover or your whatever, your upper, your lower, your buttstock, anything has any like super hard detail or you don't want to buy it or whatever, that is going to be 3D printed. The rails, you can buy real rails, super cheap to put on there. You don't have to 3D print those, especially if you're doing FDM and you don't want to spend the time on sanding all of it. Which, by the way, PETG is super easy to sand, especially at a low layer height. So I would recommend doing that if you don't have a resin printer. But the woodworking and the metalworking and the 3D printing and the laser cutting and all that coming together, and especially if you're adding fabric or whatever it is to that prop, makes that prop much more valuable and much more beautiful than just all 3D printed, in my opinion. So it all depends on what your end product is going to be, what it's going to be used for. Yeah, so that's my spiel on that.
To build on that a little bit, so Thor's hammer, this was actually the core of it, and then which is a metal galvanized metal box. I had a local sheet metal company, York Corrugating, if anybody knows the name, fab these up for me, and then I used Chaos Cortex design and printed the end caps with all the scroll work in it to get the detail. So these just got fastened on there. Plus, now you want to talk about realism, we were crushing Thor's hammer. Well, it didn't crush quite the way I wanted it to. Mainly was just because of where the jaws were at. I wanted it to crush inwards and just flatten this box altogether. Unfortunately, the jaws were kind of like in the middle, so it pushed the ends into it and kind of popped them out a little bit. But yeah, like Sean was saying, here's the metal box. I already got half of my detail work done. I just need to make this look like metal, and now I have my detailed scroll work done without having to engrave and do all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So I'll mix now. Like one of the projects I have, a few years ago, I did. Oh, there was stuff in there. I did my Shore Trooper helmet.
Oh yeah.
And the shit part of what fell off. I did the Shore Trooper helmet, and I want to do the Shore Trooper blaster, but I want to do two of them. I want to do one that's fully 3D printed, that's just a prop. But one of the things I do this time of year is competition shotgun shooting, block shooting, where you're trying to get a shotgun. So you're shooting a spread of pellets around, but you're trying to group those pellets as accurately as possible and get as close to the center of the target as possible. I want to do the Shore Trooper blaster, but then I'm looking for the right shotgun right now to take all those 3D printed pieces, model the shotgun, and do a display piece to take to the competitions that is actually a functioning shotgun that I can shoot competition with. Because all these other guys, I mean, they have shotguns that are thousands and thousands of dollars because they've just had them reworked to group more accurately. I just want one to show off. So like mixing the mediums, I mean, going from 3D printed pieces that literally just attach and create a shell around the shotgun. Now the prop one would end up with the orange tip on it, but the shotgun would actually, it would be a functioning shotgun. So there's some question as to whether that's a good idea or not. But it's one of those, it's only going to come out when it's going to these block shoots, and the people there, while they won't appreciate the Star Wars side of it, they'll appreciate all the work done to make it look awesome. So
yeah.
I can expand on this a little further as well, except with my Mjolnir that isn't crushed. But I was submitting mine into the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and there goes my phone. When I finished sanding it, these were all really indented, everything in between these like little bits that I made look like metal. And it wasn't that comfortable to hold. And I also pretty much refused to sand it because it would have taken way too long. But since I was submitting it into the Fresh Prints competition, I wanted to make sure it looked nice. So I actually went to Joann Fabrics, and this is all upholstery pleather that I had to hand cut with an X-Acto knife. And then I also had to use a heat gun on it because it had a fuzzy back, which was more annoying than I thought it would be to work with. And then this strap is actual leather. And I did that because I wanted to hide the layer lines. Like, yeah, I have a seam line back here, and some of my seams are prettier than others. But to me, even holding it, it's so much more comfortable. And the seam lines, in my opinion, they're worth it in the sense that it looks just so much better now.
Yeah.
So even if it's not functional.
Yeah, but you put the effort in to add leather to it, which gave it more credibility, and it gave it more of an authentic look.
Oh yeah.
If you were to paint leather, because if you're going to paint leather, like that's a long process, and it's still not going to look like leather. Like if something's going to be leather, it's going to be leather. If something's going to be metal, it's going to be metal. You can, if you can make it cohesive together, like real metal and plastic to look like metal, then more power to you. That's super awesome, and you can do that. But I think with your handle, that was a very, very, very tasteful choice for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And another way I do multi-material things is a lot of the times, like with one of the props I'm going to show off later if people are still interested, is this. Like this is the Christmas sword I was talking about earlier, but it actually has a threaded rod going through it just so that it doesn't snap. And like even with my Lancer, in the barrel of the gun, there's a threaded rod going through it because I was afraid that it would snap. Like a lot of my props have some sort of support on the inside, and since I don't design all of the models that I print, I'm working on getting into that, but I do look for more models that have either keys to line things up easier or threaded rod and rods in them so that I know the prop's going to be suitable to take places.
Right.
That's funny you mentioned that sword because I've been printing that sword as well.
Oh, I printed
Santa sword of slaying.
Yeah, it's the Santa sword on my mini factory. But I challenged myself to do this last Christmas. Granted, now I've finally taken the patience to properly sand things. Originally, I think this was my journey to starting to properly sand things. It was started with this one. Because originally what I would do, even I did this on the Lancer, I would take 80 grit and then I'd sand it. And then I'd do 280 and then I'd sand it. I was like, this is good. But now I use 220 and that's pretty much it. If I want to go higher, I'll go higher. Lowest I'll go is 150 now.
You wet sand?
I've learned. I tried wet sanding, but the thing is, the way I like to sand to see where my layer lines are, I like telling the difference between the matte and shiny parts. And when I wet sand, I just can't tell.
Yeah.
But this took me 8 days from start to finish. It would have taken me less time if I didn't have something stupid attached to my Prusa frame. Because the tallest part was a little too tall, so I chopped that little bit off. And that tallest part, my extruder would hit the thing that I had on my frame. I think it was a filament guide. And so it ended up taking me so many tries to find out what was wrong. So I just cut the part even shorter because I couldn't figure it out. And then that took me probably 6 days to get all of it printed. And then I think I finished it in 2, maybe 3. I don't entirely remember. I just know that I started it 8 days before Christmas and I finished it the morning of Christmas Eve.
Devon, can you hold that thing sideways so we can see the whole blade? Okay.
A second. Let me. My Lancer's in my back.
How sharp are those things anyway?
So, I purposely sand my edges down, and when I model it, I give a millimeter of space on the edges so that it's not sharp. A lot of people, like even with this model, pretty much with blades when I download the S-Tails off the internet, I always end up cutting myself. And they're basically like paper cuts that hurt a touch more because friction with plastic isn't fun. But I think I've cut myself on every single knife I've made except for the one I designed.
So Mike, sorry to deviate. So the point, Mike, while she's holding that sideways, so you can see that blade. So the blade, if you want to take this 3D modeled object and you have the ability to do, you have a machine shop and you have all that, you can 3D print the blade. And then for the handle, you could do that. You could do that on a lathe.
Mm-hmm.
And then connect those two. But if you see the is that gold or brass? I can't.
It's gold paint.
It's gold. Okay, so
Yeah.
so those gold areas, you could turn those out of brass or whatever type of material. I mean, gold if you really want to go that route.
You do gold
but-
leaf.
Yeah. But you could do that out of the brass, and the ball at the end, you could do that out of brass. And then that red in between, you could do a red leather or a red pleather or a red ostrich in between those and make that really stand out. And then everything else could be 3D printed. So you could do all that if you had the means to do that. And it would make it look like for film and television, from my perspective, you could put that on screen. And you could do close-ups of that. Right now, you still could.
So I actually hand
Not saying you're doing a bad job. Just trying to explain.
No, I perfectly understand. So one of my decisions I did make when doing this was at the point where I thought airbrushing was the way to go. But for this one, I spray painted the blade. I spray painted the entire thing, but I actually made the choice to hand paint just to give it that texture. Like I actually like laid it on really thick, purposely putting brush strokes on it to get the texture on the red.
Yeah,
So
you
that
did
it
awesome job.
contrasted.
Yeah,
you
I
did.
think it was real cool.
That's with your Mjolnir, the texture that you have from the leather on the handle and wrapping that, you're not getting that anywhere else. I mean, you almost can't 3D print. You can, some of the spots on camera there, you can see the pores in the leather.
Sean might be able to 3D print it with his nice resin printer, but
It still wouldn't look the same though.
it really wouldn't, because it also wouldn't feel the same. Like you can just, when you grab the handle, you can tell that it's not plastic, and you can, I mean, even though pleather is vinyl, like it feels, it feels better.
You got a different texture on there. You got a different material on there. So you're going to have that squishy. You're going to have that soft. You're going to have, all the ribs on it.
Even with my throwing knives, like this wouldn't look good without the actual paracord. Like if you printed that, it just wouldn't look right.
Yeah, that 550 cord really makes that. It's very, very well done.
If you go to one, if you were just showing that off and saying, "Oh, look at this knife that I made," I wouldn't guess it's 3D printed.
It looks real.
Yeah. All the ones that you showed, Devon, they look real.
And if you have an actor on screen that's using the prop or whatever, like they're going to be in character. So you don't want them to grab something that doesn't feel real, because that kind of just throws everything off.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to feel that leather. You want them to feel that 550 cord that you're using, for the dagger. You want them to feel that metal. You want that weight on the rifle. You want everything to kind of be realistic for the person that's acting the part. So that's kind of where the cosplay goes into film, and where they can intersect. If your cosplay is so in depth and so detailed that you want it to be like, yeah, I just jumped out of this comic book, or I just jumped out of this whatever, and everything is real. Well, like, you want to add that metal to it. You want to add that wood to it. Like hydro dipping wood is different than actually grabbing wood, than actually, having that grain on there, than having that stain on there. So it's all how realistic you want it to be without it being real.
Yeah, with that said, you can get close with things like the Protopasta composites and stuff like that. You can, if you do want to fully 3D print something, you can use like, say you're doing a knife, you can use the iron, the magnetic iron has the weight to it. It has the coolness of metal. You can use copper. You can use brass. Like you can use those composite materials to give you that if you do want to go fully 3D printed. But like Sean said, aesthetically, you are still missing part of it. When you get up close, I printed a beer tap for one of the guys that retired from my work, who makes his own beer. I made him a beer tap with his last name on the handle. It was one of the big beer taps, out of Protopasta's copper composite. Polished the crap out of that. And when I handed it to him, it had the weight, but it wasn't the weight of a solid chunk of copper. He thought when I handed it to him that he was going to be taking a solid chunk of copper from, expecting additional weight, but it had every appearance of being copper.
Right.
Yeah, this knife that I made for Mike, his version of it, which currently doesn't exist anymore because he, like, the model exists. His physical version doesn't because he broke it.
He broke
But
it. I didn't know he broke it.
I could tell you the story about how he broke it, but he made his out of, I think, brass fill.
Yeah.
It was one of the Protopasta fills, and he polished the crap out of it, and you can tell it's absolutely gorgeous in his pictures. But the one thing that I would say is with the fills for like props, the layer adhesion just isn't as good, and part of that is because that Mike figured out is because he threw his and it shattered.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's why his doesn't exist anymore. Is because granted, if I threw this, it probably would break somewhere too, but his like pretty much shattered.
Right.
Yep. And that's the thing. Like you can't take a 3D printed, a composite material like a brass or a steel or whatever, and throw it on a buffer. Like if you have a buffer wheel and it's spinning real fast, like if you put that thing on there, it's gonna burn it, and it's done. You're done. You're out of $35 of whatever you printed, or however much.
Yep.
But if you take that, the real brass or whatever, and you throw it on the wheel, you're gonna get a shine like that instead of all day working on that shine without melting your material, because it's still plastic.
Yep.
Like it is still and I'm not bashing 3D printing, not one bit, but depending on what effect you want to get, depending on what your budget is and what is available to you, that's what you need to use.
Right.
For the prop, for the realism.
Also, some of it just comes down to how much your time is worth to you, because
True.
If you have the ability to quickly make a brass part, it might be more cost effective for you to make a brass part instead of taking the time to use brass fill.
Right.
So surface finishes seem to matter a lot in this particular area.
Yeah.
So has anybody messed around with the 3D printing where it actually 3D prints in 3D versus the layered printing where it does like the surface all, like a CNC machine?
And the only reason I haven't messed with it is, I mean, most of my printers are CR10 style printers,
So you got a big head.
Yeah. If I had, at Earth, we did the benchy competition, the speed benchy. One of the guys was printing with airbrush nozzles. So it's a super long, skinny nozzle that he wanted to do his benchy non-planar. He just didn't have enough time to get it tweaked to be able to do it. That's almost what you need, because you got to get the heat block and everything up out of the way. If you have shallow depths, then yeah, like doing something like the end caps for Thor's hammer. Granted, it printed like this, but something like this, you could get away with the non-planar to get a better finish on the scroll work. But That's the biggest reason I haven't done it. None of my printers really have more than maybe 5 millimeters of clearance between the nozzle and the heat block.
Mm.
Yep.
Oh, should I reveal some of my collab stuff now then?
Go for it.
Go for it.
Okay, so well, the one collab that I hinted at because I didn't know which collab I was supposed to be hinting about. The one collab the Geek Tech family and I are doing is we're making a Lancer. Geek Tech has pulled the files from the game Gears of War 3, and we're going to adjust it so it looks like the one from Gears 1. The one from Gears 1, when he pulled it, it was like 2 inches thick and just like a block, so that wasn't very helpful. Well, Carson, tell him to come back. Carson just said that Ryan walked out of the room. But the way we plan on doing it is making it as game accurate as possible. So the chainsaw is going to move. This part's going to spin when the chainsaw spins. There's going to be a handle. And we've been talking about trying to get FDL to collab with us so that it is a Nerf blaster as well. We don't know if that's going to happen or not. And I have said that if it does happen, we need to have 2 barrels, one that darts can go through and ones that can't, because don't really want to get Chris in trouble for me bringing a Lancer that can shoot Nerf darts to Earth next year.
Hey, as long as you're exhibiting, you can bring it.
Yeah, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And then
I mean, it's going to have a chainsaw on it.
Darts aren't the biggest worry.
So the chainsaw, the way we plan on having it is so like the teeth swing out of the way. So if someone stuck their hand in it, it wouldn't actually pinch or anything. Like all the teeth are going to be hinged, so they like fold up into the chainsaw and stuff. And what I'm allowed to say about the group collab is that I'm working on a big project with the Geek family and a bunch of other people. I'm going to list them after I finish reading this small blurb. The project has about 9 really big prints. I'm doing 2 big prints and a small print for it. 2 or 3. We haven't actually decided yet. And the cake is a lie. That's all I'm allowed to say about it. The people in it are the Knack 3D and his daughter, Mike, Midnight Giant, me, Ryan and his wife, and my friend. Oh, and Clangaden is also helping us. He has a makerspace in Maryland. I don't know what the name of the makerspace is, though. And also my friend Chris, he just made a Twitter. It's @RacingStolen. I can give Matt all the Twitter for that so that people can follow them and everything. But we haven't asked Chris for permission yet. We still are working out a plan. We're seeing if anyone's interested in sponsoring, but seems pretty promising because Gloop's already been in. Gloop's already like all in on it. So
Cool.
yeah, and we're hoping it becomes an annual thing of this big collab that we're doing. The people in it might change, but the idea hopefully will continue on.
That's cool. All right. Well, does anybody have anything else that they'd like to share?
Oh, those little dominoes came off the printers.
Sure. Yep, full screen here. Go for it.
So let's see. So this is that little part that I designed literally in the browser. I got a couple of them that came off. I got one down here too. And they just keep on cranking them out. And if anybody wanted to see that ejection, because they weren't able to earlier, I'm going to actually cancel a print and let it pop out. It's going to take a second there, but yeah. There we are. So it's going to start the next job here in a second and then pop that thing out. I should have hit the button earlier.
For those,
Well, there we are.
period. As you guys can see on the lower thirds, this is what you're watching is what AutoDrop 3D does. For those who've joined in, I know we got a couple on Facebook watching now. You're watching the auto ejection feature of AutoDrop 3D.
I don't know whether you could hear it peeling up.
Yeah, you could hear the crackling as it peeled off.
Mm-hmm. And it just pops it up. It's got a little wall there in the back, and it's going to go back and keep on going.
The thing I like about this, and Mike, you and I talked about this at Earth, with my print farm with my CR10s, I have G code compiled that I add to. I'll slice something and then I'll add an NG code to it.
Knock it off the bed.
Paste, yeah, where I use the print head, I give it some time to cool down. Once the bed reaches a cool down temperature, the head moves up and knocks it off.
You could totally do that.
It works, but it's finicky. Whereas the thing I like about your system there with that back pusher, that's kind of your like extra confirmation that that part is pushed clear of the bed. So when the bed does draw back again to print the next one, it's a clear bed. Using the head does two things. One, it's not consistent, but it also you're beating the crap out of your printer by trying to beat a part off the bed if you get good layer adhesion.
Yeah, you can see there, that kind of is how we get it off so easy. We have a taper on the front of the raft. So that's actually a 45-degree angle there. So that makes it easier to peel up.
Is that special G code for that?
So it's there's a little bit of fun that we have there. So part of it is modifications to Kira to make it so that we print out this like grid section so that we can have kind of a limited adherence to the bed. And then we do a little bit of some tricks in the G code center to have it shift the G code over, or shift everything over during those layers.
And that's how you get your 45 for the peel.
Yeah.
And then as far as your peeling bar, you're just using a piece of aluminum bar stock with a beveled edge on it, basically, right?
Yeah, you know, I think for right now, the cheapest aluminum bar stock we could get was going to Harbor Freight and picking up these aluminum rulers.
Oh, really?
Which I don't even have to measure them. It's weird, you know?
That's pretty.
There's another one. It's just popping off right now.
And then you can have a bin or something on the floor that has the plate there, the yellow at the end that the prints push up onto. As that fills up, it just pushes them off into a bin and collects your parts.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I have a floor with the parts collect, but yes, you can put a bin below it.
So for anybody who joined us here towards the end after Mike showed off AutoDrop, we are going to have Mike back on as a guest for a main topic to go over I think I said AutoDesk, AutoDrop, and dive a little bit more into detail on it, along with a panel of co-hosts to ask questions as well. So we're definitely going to go into more detail on this because it's a pretty neat setup that Mike's got going on there.
Yeah, I mean,
they were upstairs on the mezzanine. When you'd go up to where the photogrammetry scanning booth was, you had to walk right by the AutoDrop 3D guys, and they had that shelf back there full of you had 3 wide on each shelf of the MP Delta minis, monoprice mini Delta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had 8 of them at the show, and then we had one of the Roadstock Max V4s, and that thing is a dream. I'll tell you, those V4s. We're going to be putting in the stuff for doing water soluble filament, and it is just going to be like perfect.
Yeah. Mitch asked, how do you deal with calibration on the MP Delta?
So we're not running stock firmware. We're running the copy of Marlin. Done by I forget what his name is. What his username on GitHub is, but it's the Marlin port that's done properly for it. And as far as leveling goes, we just shim it, and you shim it once, and you leave it.
Right. Yeah, that's the whole idea of your system is basically once it's calibrated, you're not the people printing are not touching the printer. They're just picking their part up that's already detached from the bed. So there's no shifting, there's no jostling of the printer.
Yeah, it's a little bit more painful the first time you go through and you level it out.
Right.
But once it's done, it's done.
Yep. Cool. Just checking the chat here. Doesn't look like we have any more questions from the chat panel. Do you guys have anything else that you want to show? All right. Well, with that said, I'll do an outro for Paul. He had to run, and I apologize, Paul. I missed your messages in the private chat. Paul showed off his Octoprint Deploy plugin, which if you search GitHub for Octoprint Deploy, it'll come up as the first result. Taking a old laptop, old desktop, install Ubuntu on it, install Octoprint one time on it, and then basically run Paul's script for each of your printers to create more and more instances. And Paul said, I have one that I hand set up that's running 12 printers. Paul said he's had up to, I think he said 11 or 12 on his as well. You can find Paul on GitHub as Paukstelis. You can find him on Twitter at, I think it's Paukstelis on Twitter, but I'll have all the links for him down below, as well as everybody else on here tonight. Mike, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you and find AutoDrop?
Yeah, so AutoDrop3D.com is where you can go to the website, see the products that we have, and if you want to get into the cloud, you can totally do that. Keep in mind, I mean, we are kind of at the early stages here, so if we get a big influx of people, it's gonna suck real quick for me, and I'm gonna have to go and figure out our hosting a bit better. But
all right, Devon, over to you.
Oh, Groot.
I've been just casually putting it in the picture randomly, hoping for this moment. I'm on Twitter at Gear3D_official. I do have a website, but I don't recommend going on it because it's for commission-based props pretty much, and it's not the best website. I made it like a year ago, and I don't know how to edit it anymore.
Jeez.
I do plan on making an Etsy at some point for models I've made and this printing service, and I will make a tweet about it when that happens, but Twitter's definitely the best way to find me.
Awesome.
And
Thanks.
I'll probably I'm going to make a post, or I'll give you the information about everyone in the project.
Yeah,
So that,
whatever you guys want in the description, send that over to me after we get off the stream, and I'll make sure it gets put down below. Thank you, Devon. Sean, you're up.
What's up? Thank you everybody for coming out tonight. It is Friday. It is late. I hope you guys had a good day today and have a fantastic weekend ahead of you. You can find me at ArtMods_ on Twitter, at ArtMods Official on Instagram. My Instagram is more of my photography stuff. So if you're interested in that, you can go check me out there. And then you can also find me on YouTube at Seananigans, SEAN Nanigans, and see what I am going to be coming out with in the near future, near future. So that is that. And if you want to reach me professionally, you can always contact me at P.O. Poly as well. Yeah, that is that. Have a good night, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean, for helping co-host and talking about your upcoming and ongoing project. So that takes it back to me. I'm Matt, YouTube channel How I Do It, youtube.com/How I Do It. You can find me on Twitter at Country Cowboy, and Instagram, just Matthew Flinchbaugh on Instagram. I do a little bit of everything: woodworking, metalworking, 3D printing. Just got a laser 2 months ago that I finally now have some time to play with. So I start to do more laser projects as well. For the Friday night hangouts, you can follow us on Twitter at F3DPCH. You can go to F3DPCH.com or Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout.com. If you'd like to be on the show and tell show and show off anything you've got, projects, products, techniques, as long as somewhere along the line of doing it, it involved 3D printing or it can be used for 3D printing, we'd love to have you on to show it off to us. Let us ask questions of you and be up here on the camera. The only requirements are that you have a microphone and a webcam of some kind. It even can be just your webcam on your laptop. Of course, we keep everything family friendly as much as possible. And that's pretty much all you got to do to come on the show and tell show. Currently, I'm having an issue with our website. It will be back up, hopefully by the end of this weekend. If you go to f3dpch.com and click on show and tell, there will be a form there. You can fill it out and you can select. Typically, I try to have the next 3 months worth of show and tell shows. So you can select which one you want to be on. If you're not quite ready for the next one, you can go a month out or 2 months out. The next Friday night 3D printing community hangout will be November 1st at 10 p.m. Eastern. That will be a guest stream with a guest and a topic that I do not have scheduled at the moment. At some point, we're going to get Piopoli on to talk about the Phenom and let us ask questions about the Phenom. And even if you have questions about the Moai, we're going to get them on for that. The next show and tell is November 22nd. Actually, no, I apologize. There's 3 weeks in November. It'll be November 15th is the next show and tell. So if you'd like to sign up for that and show off what you've got, like I said, the website's currently down. If you go to the website and it's not working, just send us a message on Twitter or on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout. So thank you again to all of our presenters tonight, Paul, Mike, and Devon. Thank you for coming on and showing what you got. Sean, thank you again for co-hosting, and we will see you all next time. Thank you also to everybody in the chat, Facebook and YouTube this time around. So have a good night, everybody, from the Friday 3D Printing Community Hangout. Find the button.